You know, the world has become a global village and all international affairs move together. Pakistan has acrimonious relationship with India, and obviously that is one front. But when it goes to an international front, a nuclear issue takes lead on everything. And there again, India plays its card in a way that is detrimental to the interest of Pakistan. Obviously, having relationship with the world, United States, and have become a responsible nuclear state has connotations. How to move about it, what should be the foreign policy initiative, especially the Prime Minister has missed a conference, otherwise Pakistan would have taken some stand which would start some sort of a diplomacy or effort on which there could have been difficulties. We have today with us Lieutenant General retired Talat Masood, who is a military analyst, and he has seen the world and these sort of relationship from the eye of a civilian detached observer as well. General, a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
So what do you think, how to move about? Because Pathankot, dirty bomb falling in the hand of terrorists, and then taking some position on strategic small arms in the conference that Pakistan did not participate. I mean, Prime Minister could not go. But how to move about it?
No, I think there are several aspects of as far as the threat is concerned to Pakistan. First is, of course, the normal conventional threat that you mentioned, because our relations with India are so bad and so tense, and especially after what has happened, the revelation that there were spies which are operating, not only one spy but several spies operating in Balochistan to destabilize it. Then there are also rumors that there have been similar efforts on the part of India to destabilize us in Fatah and in Karachi and all that. So that, of course, requires policing, it requires a lot of intelligence work to counter that, and also to raise those issues at the diplomatic level, both bilaterally as well as on the international forums. Then, in addition to that, Pakistan now has to be very careful, because it has become an India's policy to undermine and destabilize Pakistan. And it's a matter of policy. I mean, it's not a secret anymore. It's being implemented, and also it is being enunciated in the sense that, if you would recall, the Defense Minister of India did say that we are going to make every effort to destabilize Pakistan openly as a policy statement. So you can imagine that a neighbor makes a policy statement to destabilize. What is the motive? Is it because the Kashmiris are resisting the domination within India? Is that the reason? Whatever it be, but they want to take revenge in all these places that I mentioned. Then we, of course, also have the internal threat of these Taliban, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, and there is also several other organizations like Al-Qaeda which have been operating in Pakistan. Then we have now the latest threat of Daesh. So we have several threats which we have to face, and some of these groups like the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan also seem to be associated with India, and that further complicates, because they then get further strength. And as India has a very free space in Afghanistan, and apparently some bases as well, so what you find is that they use those areas also for destabilizing Pakistan. Then the other thing which sometimes we forget, and you mentioned that very correctly, one is that India's forces and Pakistani forces are faced eyeball to eyeball on the line of control as well as on the working boundary. That is a very dangerous situation for countries which are nuclear, and also the countries which have not solved their political problems. There have been periods of constant firing on the line of control and instability, but thankfully for the last few months it has been more peaceful. Now coming to the exact question that you mentioned about the nuclear issue. The nuclear issue, Pakistan is a responsible state, has been trying to prove to the world that it is a responsible state, in the sense that as far as the safety and security measures are concerned, it has taken all the security measures that the conventions and the legal international legal obligations require. It has fulfilled that. In addition, it has even signed additional protocol, which was not necessary, but in order to make certain that its security is of a very high level, it has even done that. India actually capitalizes on what happened in the past, the A.Q. Khan affair. In fact, because of that, we had to be on the defensive for several years. But now I think time has come when we don't have to be defensive anymore. And because now our record is good, we are in close collaboration with the US on security issues. They have even provided us, technology and some assistance to further fortify our security. As far as safety measures are concerned, we are also taking proper safety measures. But India will continue to, of course, harp and try to give an impression to the world that we are an insecure country and we are associated with terrorists and so on. But in addition to that, I think what has happened is that the present doctrine of India, the Cold Start doctrine, and Pakistan's response to it in the sense of tactical weapons, and the continuous tension that I mentioned earlier between India and Pakistan, has created a situation where the world, from my point of view, is reasonably justified and expects that India and Pakistan will rather resolve their differences or come to some sort of an understanding where they could have at least peaceful borders and no possibility of use of nuclear weapons. What happens is when the tensions are so high and you have large conventional forces facing each other, then you have also doctrines like the Cold Start doctrine, and in response the use of tactical nuclear weapons, then things become very dangerous.
Do you think that the world thinks that these tactical nuclear weapons, because of their mobility, because of their portability, can fall in the hand of the terrorists?
Well, you see, the way that Pakistan has been projected internationally for a very long time, especially by its enemies and adversaries, there is a general feeling that Pakistan, and then certain incidents do occur, like for instance the latest occurrences of what happened in Lahore and other places, strengthen the belief amongst them that Pakistan is not a stable country, and for it to be nuclear and also to place its tactical nuclear weapons so far ahead on the border where the control will not be there, sometimes gives worry to the international community, sometimes justifiably, sometimes to exploit Pakistan and to sort of give it a bad name. But Pakistan has taken several measures, including that when it would deploy its tactical weapons, or if it is going to be accompanied by a large conventional force of a fairly large conventional force, so that the tactical weapons.
What is large? About a strength of a div or something?
Well, I think at least that a division or something like that, in order to protect the tactical weapons, so that they don't fall in the hands of any undesirable terrorists or anyone like that. But I would say, as I said earlier, that I think India and Pakistan should work out something so that the use of tactical weapons or the use of Cold Start doctrine is abandoned. Because whatever one might say, if supposing India resorts to Cold Start doctrine, if we assume that, which is a possibility because the terrorists in Pakistan are not under control of Pakistan, as Pakistan is very sincerely and faithfully demonstrating in the case of Pathankot. So if that thing happens, which has nothing to do with the state, and a non-state actor, in order to create a serious problem in South Asia, attacks some part of India and India responds through the cold start doctrine and Pakistan responds with tactical nuclear weapons, then India has already pronounced its doctrine that it will respond, with full nuclear retaliation, which would be a very dangerous thing for both the countries.
So here we take a break, and after the break we will keep discussing and analyze the situation, especially the relationship between the two countries and how this nuclear issue has been clubbed with the relationship, which is not good. Please stay with us.
It's diverse.
It's original.
It's SDTV.
Welcome back. How should Pakistan move abroad?
Well, I think as what you probably mean is how should Pakistan deal with India and at the diplomatic front. Well, I think Pakistan has raised this issue with all its friends and at the UN as well. Probably it may or may not. So, but I would say that in spite of the fact that we have raised this issue, which we should have done and should continue to do, we should not have very high expectations, for the simple reason that countries act on the basis of expediency rather than on the basis of interest. And what we will find that because the interests with India are too great to be sacrificed, especially on a complaint by Pakistan, I don't think that will happen. That is different, that sometimes you will find statements coming out from, like what President Obama said the other day, that I think these two nuclear countries need to sort out their differences in order to reduce tension and to reduce the dangers inherent in two nuclear neighbors being in a state of such high tension. So I think that aside, one should not expect very much, but this does not by any means imply that Pakistan should not continue in its efforts to bring to the world world's notice that India continues to harm Pakistan in a very deliberate fashion and wants to destabilize it. I also think that destabilizing Pakistan has ramifications not only for Pakistan but for the entire region. In short, the domino effect of Afghanistan we already see in the entire region, including in Pakistan, in a very big way. Similarly, if India is under a false impression that if an upheaval takes place, God forbid, in Pakistan due to such instigations by India, then it's not very, it wouldn't be very wrong to assume that India will also be one day engulfed in it, because there are forces within India that are also very radical and also against the state. And India is not a homogeneous country. It is not monolithic. It has several creeds and castes and religions, and especially the policy which is pursued by the BJP is such that it has made India more divisive. So I feel that it is in their own interest that they try to sort of look at the problem on a long term and also on a regional level, and that they would be even undermining their own security.
Where is that common ground where we should put our foot on? How to rumble on that?
Yeah, I think the common ground is that peace is needed for you, for us, because we want to develop economically.
How do it?
Well, I think it's only a
should trade take precedence?
Yes, of course.
We should forget about the structural dialogue and structural issues.
Well, I think trade, with easing of visas,
dialogue, we should forget about it.
Well, that could come later. Even if there is a composite dialogue and there is no progress, what difference does it make that you create structures? In fact, this reminds me that Pakistan has several structures within Pakistan to improve Pakistan, but the Prime Minister doesn't use those structures and institutions. So what to talk of when you have bilateral structures between India and Pakistan, if you have created one like the comprehensive or and dialogue or composite dialogue structures, and if you don't really adhere to those or benefit from those, then I think it's no point. So I think once the policy changes and you look at India and Indian people, politicians and people in power and establishment looks at Pakistan in a way that we have to be friendly to our neighbor so as to develop economically and have a peaceful environment, and learn something as what China has done, that despite their differences they seem to work on a bilateral basis and have increased their trade more than $80 billion. Imagine from where they have lifted this, so that there is a huge lobby which develops in the two countries and then interacts and develops a peace lobbies within those countries. So I think I would suggest and recommend that we should develop similar lobbies, and I think this is what you were aiming at when you asked me this question.
Right. Thank you very much for being on the program, and with this we take permission to come to the end of the program. Next time, next topic, next guest, so please keep watching our program.